Enzo Ferrari once said that a V12 engine is the beating heart of the prancing horse. But in these chastened automotive times, where ever tighter emissions regulations and even the sound of engines are being strangled, the question has to be asked: is the V12 dead? Ferrari doesn't think so, which is why the car you see here remains true to Enzo's vision of a V12 beating heart. It's the new 12Cilindri Spider, the convertible version of the Daytona 365 GTB inspired coupe that made its debut last year. And under this long bonnet does indeed live, to use Enzo's own words, the beating heart of the prancing horse, a 6.5 litre V12. So let's go for a drive and find out what makes this car pretty special, and to find out if there is indeed some life left in the V12 formula. Ferraris aren't for the faint of wallet and very much fall into the category of, if you have to ask. But for the record, the Ferrari 12Cilindri Spider is priced from $886,800 before on-road costs. But this being a Ferrari, personalisation abounds, and it's easy to imagine buyers will tick a few boxes that will, after on-road costs have been added, see a final price of over $1 million. So what do you get for your cool million? It's actually a bit pointless to list the features of this car, since most buyers are likely to personalise their convertible V12 Ferrari in myriad ways. But things like 21-inch alloy wheels, LED matrix headlights, keyless entry and start, dual zone climate control, and a 10.25-inch infotainment screen with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto are standard. There's also wireless smartphone charging and a big driver-focused 15.6-inch digital instrument display. Curiously, missing from the spec sheet is satellite navigation. Not really all that strange, considering most people prefer to use their smartphone for route guidance in this day and age. And really, it doesn't matter, because what you're buying into with a Ferrari is more than just the sum of its parts. You're buying into the brand's heritage and tradition, a history of V12 road cars spanning more than 75 years, and one that has given us some of the most beautiful and mesmerising cars ever. But is this new 12-cylinder Grand Tourer one of them? You can let us know in the comments below. And remember, if you're in the market for a Ferrari, or any car for that matter, you'll find plenty of new and near-new cars on Drive Marketplace at Drive.com.au. The Ferrari 12Cilindri Spider looks far more commanding in the metal than it does in photos. It's a long and wide car, and it sits low to the ground. Make no mistake, this new Ferrari Spider is the very epitome of a V12-powered Grand Tourer. With classic lines and imposing proportions, the 12Cilindri convertible has commanding presence on the road. That tapered nose, so redolent of the Daytona 365 from the 1960s, leads into a very long bonnet, all bulges and mesh inlets under which lurks that glorious V12. And the convertible roof is noteworthy too. Ferrari's designers wanted to maintain the elegant roofline of the coupe, so opted for an intricate hardtop design for the convertible. It can be opened or closed in around 14 seconds and at speeds of up to 45 kilometers an hour. And believe me, you'll want to enjoy it with the roof open, all of the time. Inside, Ferrari's newest convertible GT remains driver-focused. Yes, there is a nod to modernity with infotainment screens and cup holders, but pleasingly, the cabin remains a place of near purity. The gear selector is a case in point, mimicking the famed Ferrari gated box of yesteryear. Sure, it's now an automatic, but there's something undeniably cool about this modern interpretation of a classic element. It all feels very special inside, from the comfortable and supportive seats to the chunky steering wheel replete with paddle shifters. And then there's the digital driver display, where the star of the show is the central tacho, which seemingly urges you to push on while watching engine revs climb to its delicious 9,500 RPM redline. Make no mistake, this is a driver's car first and foremost, one that can evoke emotional responses like few cars can. And it all begins with the press of this starter button on the steering wheel. I have to say, the V12 isn't as loud as it has been in previous generations of V12 Grand Tourers. It's been neutered by the bureaucrats at the European Union, or whoever it is that decides on noise emissions levels. But it's not a poorer car for it. There's still enough sound, and Ferrari's engineers have gone to great lengths in ensuring the noise of induction and the noise of exhaust somehow are filtered into the cabin, not in a synthetically digitized way, but just through sheer channeling of air. And it does it to good effect. But of course, this car's more than just about noise. It's about how it drives. And by that measure, this 12Cilindri Spider is an absolute peach. Drop the roof, as I have done today. The sun's shining, sort of. It's a bit breezy, but even with this wind, I'm not being buffeted, I'm not being tossed around. It's really quite calm and serene in here. But what's not serene is how this car drives when you're presented with a bit of open road and some corners to tackle. But what you'll find is this thing is super quick. There's 610 kilowatts, 678 newton meters, and according to Ferrari, 0 to 100 in 2.9 seconds, which is proper fast. But it's more than just about power, and it's more than just about big numbers. It's how that power is delivered. Ferrari's engineers have brought in some new torque mapping, or as what they're referring to it as torque shaping. And the aim of it is to have more torque available through the whole entire range of gears, and there are 8 of them. There's a new 8-speed dual clutch transmission underpinning this car. And they said they paid special attention to 3rd and 4th gears because this is the sort of car they've explained. And I have to say, I agree, having now spent some time behind the wheel, this is the sort of car best enjoyed in 3rd and 4th gear. The chassis is beautifully balanced as well. There's no hint of the massive size this car actually is. It feels like a much smaller sports car rather than the Grand Tour it actually is. The steering is fantastic too. It's really precise, really sharp. It's got some nice weight, and it just makes it that much easier to drive the 12Cilindri with confidence. And that's what you want. You don't want to be nervous. You don't want the car to feel nervous. You don't want yourself to be nervous. You want to enjoy this car and not be fearful of it. And after a little bit of trepidation when I first got behind the wheel, thanks largely to its sheer width and the fact that some of the roads we traversed on the outskirts of Lisbon were a little bit tight, to say the least, I was a little bit nervous, but that soon vanished thanks to the balance of the chassis, the precise and sharp manner of the steering. It's just a lovely, lovely Grand Tourer. Of course, with the roof off, it's the best way to enjoy this car. It's a pretty purposeful experience in the cabin here too. You've got this digital driver display with a centrally mounted tacho. I haven't had the opportunity to run it out to its 9,500 RPM redline, but I can tell you that after about 6,500, that V12 under the long bonnet does start to howl. It's an enjoyable oral experience. This really is a wonderful car to drive, whether you're throwing it at some mountain twisties or doing some relaxed long distance running in the true grand touring fashion. There's a lot of fun and a lot of enjoyment from behind the wheel of this 12Cilindri Spider. I started this video by asking if the V12 was dead. However, having now spent some time behind the wheels of this, the 12Cilindri, the answer is an emphatic no. Sure, the V12, thanks to some European emissions nannies, has lost some of its thunderous appeal, but that doesn't detract from what this car does. Its performance is otherworldly. It's got a beautifully balanced chassis, it's stupidly quick, but it's also a beautifully balanced car, one that can be thrown at some corners with the wind in your hair and a smile on your face. And you will want to drive it with the roof down. It's the best way to enjoy this car and the V12 under the bonnet that is still the beating heart of the prancing horse. If you want to know everything there is to know about this car, be sure to check out my written review at Drive.com.au. And if you enjoyed this video, give us a like and hit the subscribe button.